The countdown echoed through mission control with metallic precision. 5, 4, 3. Rover's heartbeat accelerated as the rocket's engines ignited beneath him. Unlike the 9 human astronauts strapped around him, he couldn't comprehend the mathematics of orbital mechanics or the engineering marvel that was StarCanine's Odyssey spacecraft. But he understood something more primal. Something was about to change forever. 2, 1. The world exploded. The German shepherd's muscular body pressed against his custom harness as Earth itself seemed to fall away. Through the viewport, he watched his home planet shrink from continent-sized patches of green and blue to a pale marble suspended in blackness. He would be the first of his kind to leave it behind completely. And somewhere out there in the darkness, Mars waited. They said it couldn't be done, Elizachin declared, her voice echoing to the packed auditorium at StarCanine headquarters. They said I was crazy. The CEO paused dramatically, savoring the moment as cameras flashed and reporters leaned forward in anticipation. Maybe I am. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But crazy gets results. While NASA and other agencies spent decades developing robots that break down in Martian dust, we look to nature's perfect explorer. On the massive screen behind her, footage played of Rover navigating a simulated Martian landscape, his movements fluid and adaptive where machines would stumble. 4 billion years of evolution created something no engineer could design, the perfect companion for humanity's greatest adventure. The room erupted in applause, but Chin wasn't finished. She lowered her voice, forcing the audience to strain to hear her next words. What I'm about to show you has never been seen outside our most secure facilities. The lights dimmed. The screen displayed what looked like a satellite image of the Martian surface, focusing on a particular formation in Acidalia planitia. 3 years ago, our orbital survey captured this anomaly, Chin continued. Perfectly symmetrical structures beneath the Martian soil, arranged in patterns that cannot be explained by natural geological processes. A murmur spread through the crowd as she let the implications sink in. Ladies and gentlemen, Rover isn't just going to Mars to test survival systems or collect soil samples. He's going to make first contact. Dr. Marcus Williams watched the press conference from the laboratory 15 floors below, shaking his head as he adjusted Rover's neural implant. She's really pushing that alien angle, isn't she? He muttered to his colleague, Dr. Aisha Okoye, who was monitoring Rover's vital signs. Can you blame her? Aisha replied without looking up from her tablet. Funding doesn't grow on trees. The public needs something sexier than dog test habitation modules. Marcus sighed, gently stroking Rover's head. The dog looked up at him with complete trust. I just worry about the expectations. Those structures are probably just unusual erosion patterns. And if they're not, he trailed off, not wanting to voice his deeper concerns. Aisha finally looked up. If they're not, then Rover here makes the greatest discovery in human history. Either way, we're making the journey. That's what matters. Rover wagged his tail, sensing the shift in energy. To him, this was just another training session, another chance to please his humans. He had no conception of the millions of miles he would soon travel, or the fact that he might never return to Earth. Marcus checked the neural implant readings one last time. The revolutionary technology would not only monitor Rover's biological functions, but also transmit rudimentary sensory data back to Earth. Humanity would see, hear, and in a limited way, feel Mars through this extraordinary animal. All green, he announced. He's ready for final preparation. Aisha nodded, making a note on her tablet. T-minus 3 days to launch. The Odyssey awaits its most important passenger. In her private office, away from the cameras and adoring public, Elizachin stared at the same Martian images that had just electrified her audience. But these weren't the carefully enhanced versions shown at the press conference. These were the raw files, and they told a more complex story. The symmetrical patterns were there, yes, but they were subtle, easily dismissed as pareidolia by skeptics. What she hadn't shown the public were the energy readings, faint but persistent emanating from deep beneath the surface. Readings that fluctuated in patterns too regular to be random. Her phone buzzed. "The President." "Madam President," Chen answered, her voice carefully modulated to hide her exhaustion. "Quite a show you put on today," came the response. "The alien angle has my security advisors in a frenzy." "The public deserves the truth," Chen replied, knowing she was walking a delicate line. The truth or a profitable narrative? Chen bristled. "With all due respect, Madam President, I've invested $17 billion of my own money in this mission. If I wanted profit, there were easier ways to get it." A pause on the line. "What aren't you telling us, Eliza?" Chen looked back at the images on her screen, at the data patterns no one else had fully decoded. "Nothing that would change the mission parameters," she said finally. "But I believe we're about to make history in ways even I can't predict." The launch was spectacular. Millions watched worldwide as StarCanine's Odyssey rocket punctured the atmosphere, carrying 9 humans and 1 very special canine toward the Red Planet. The journey would take 7 months, a blink in astronomical terms, but an eternity for those waiting on Earth. For Rover, time passed differently. The specially designed hibernation chamber kept him in a state of suspended animation for most of the journey. His body temperature lowered, his metabolism slowed to a crawl. Brief periods of wakefulness allowed the human crew to interact with him, maintaining his psychological well-being and training regimen. Commander Sarah Bakshi found herself drawn to these sessions. While the other crew members saw Rover primarily as a scientific instrument, Sarah recognized something deeper in his amber eyes, an almost human understanding. "He knows he's going somewhere important," she told Dr. Williams during their weekly video conference with Earth. "Sometimes I catch him staring out the viewports at Mars, like he's impatient to get there." Williams smiled on the screen. "Anthropomorphizing much, Commander?" "Maybe," she conceded. "But there's something about him. I can't explain it." Williams's expression turned serious. "The neural implant might be creating unexpected effects. Are you noticing any unusual behaviors?" Sarah hesitated. She hadn't reported the dreams. Vivid visions of running across red sand under twin moons, of digging into soil that revealed glittering crystalline structures beneath. Dreams that felt borrowed, as if she were seeing through someone else's eyes. "Nothing unusual," she lied. "Just regular dog stuff." Williams nodded, seemingly satisfied. "We're receiving excellent telemetry from his systems. Keep up the good work, Commander." After the call ended, Sarah found Rover in the observation module, his nose pressed against reinforced glass as Mars grew steadily larger in their view. When he noticed her, his tail wagged once, briefly. "What are you seeing, boy?" she whispered, placing her hand on his head. "What are you sensing that we can't?" For just a moment, she felt something, a flutter of alien thought, a connection that transcended species. Then it was gone, leaving her to wonder if the isolation of deep space was affecting her more than she realized. Landing day arrived with nerve-wracking intensity. Unlike previous Mars missions, Odyssey was designed to land the entire crew and their habitat modules intact. No parachutes, no separate descent vehicles. It was a revolutionary approach, one that many critics had declared impossible. In mission control on Earth, Eliza Chun paced as the final descent began. Screens showed the massive spacecraft slowing its approach, engines firing precisely to counter Mars gravity. 30 seconds to touchdown, came the voice of Flight Director Jose Rodriguez. All systems nominal. Chin stopped pacing, her eyes fixed on the screens. This was the moment everything could go wrong, the moment that would either validate her vision or destroy it. 20 seconds. In the spacecraft, Commander Bakshi kept one hand on Rover's head, drawing strength from his calm presence. Despite the tremendous forces and noises around them, the dog remained steady, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. 10 seconds. The Martian surface rushed up to meet them, red dust billowing from the engine thrust. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A gentle shudder ran through the spacecraft. Touchdown confirmed. Odyssey has landed on Mars. The control room erupted into cheers, but she remained silent, tears streaming down her face as she watched history unfold. On screen, telemetry data showed all systems functioning perfectly. They had done it. "Prepare for Rover's first walk," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the celebration. 3 days later, after extensive systems checks and habitat deployment, the moment arrived for Rover to make his historic first steps on Martian soil. A specially designed airlock allowed him to exit the habitat without requiring a pressurized suit, though he wore a protective vest equipped with heating elements, radiation shielding, and an emergency oxygen system. Commander Bakshi knelt before him, checking his equipment one last time. "Ready to make history, boy?" she asked softly. Rover licked her face, his tail wagging eagerly. The airlock cycled, and the outer door slid open to reveal the rust-colored landscape of humanity's future home. Rover hesitated for just a moment, then stepped forward into legend, his paws pressed into Martian regolith for the first time, the first Earth animal to walk on another planet. Through his neural implant, billions of humans watched in real time as he surveyed his new surroundings. They felt the crunch of alien soil beneath his pads, smelled the thin carbon dioxide atmosphere, heard the eerie silence of a world without wind or birds or insects. "Readings are strong and clear," reported Dr. Williams from Earth. "Neural telemetry is exceeding expectations." On Mars, Commander Bakshi watched as Rover moved confidently across the landing site, following the training patterns ingrained over years of preparation. He inspected the habitat modules, checked the perimeter, and collected his first soil sample in the special container attached to his vest. But then something unexpected happened. Rover stopped, his ears perking up as he faced east, toward the distant rise that concealed the anomalous readings that had partly inspired the mission. "What's he seeing?" Chun demanded, watching from mission control. Dr. Williams shook his head, studying the neural data. "Nothing visual, but there's unusual activity in his auditory cortex. He's hearing something we can't detect." On Mars, Rover barked once, a sharp, insistent sound that carried oddly in the thin atmosphere. Then, before Commander Bakshi could recall him, he bounded toward the eastern rise, moving with purpose. "Rover, return," Bakshi commanded through the communication system in his vest. But for the first time in his training, Rover ignored the command. The cameras tracked his swift movement across the Martian surface, his powerful legs covering ground with a grace that no rover could match. When he reached the rise, he began to dig furiously, red dust flying from his paws. "What the hell is he doing?" Rodriguez muttered from his console. Chen leaned forward, her heart racing. He found something. On Mars, Rover's claws scraped against something solid beneath the dust. The cameras on his vest showed a smooth, dark surface being revealed. Not rock, but something manufactured, with geometric patterns etched into its surface. The patterns began to glow with a soft blue light as more dust was cleared away. In mission control, stunned silence fell over the room. "Are we seeing this?" Chen whispered, her voice shaking. Dr. Williams stared at the neural data, flooding his screens. "His brain activity is off the charts. Something is happening that we don't understand." On the Martian surface, the glowing patterns intensified. Commander Bakshi, who had followed Rover to the site, stood frozen in disbelief as the ground beneath them began to shift. "Mission Control, are you seeing this?" She breathed into her comm. "The structure is activating." Before their eyes, a section of the ground reconfigured itself, revealing a narrow opening, an entrance to whatever lay beneath. And from that opening emerged a small, sinuous creature that glowed with the same blue light as the patterns on the structure. It moved cautiously toward Rover, who stood his ground, alert but not aggressive. The creature, roughly the size of a terrestrial cat, but with an undulating, almost fluid-like body, emitted a series of harmonic tones that the human observers couldn't interpret, but Rover could, through the neural link. Dr. Williams detected patterns in Rover's brain that corresponded to communication processing. "He's understanding it," he said in amazement. "Somehow, he's communicating with it." The creature approached Rover, extending what appeared to be a tendril of light. When it touched Rover's nose, a surge of data flooded the neural implant. Images, sensations, and concepts too alien for immediate interpretation. Commander Bakshi watched in wonder as Rover and the creature seemed to engage in a form of exchange. "It's peaceful," she reported. "They're getting to know each other." In mission control, Chen ordered all the data to be recorded and backed up on separate systems. "This is first contact," she said quietly. "History will remember this moment for eternity." Over the following weeks, Rover's interactions with the creature, which the crew nicknamed Lumen for its bioluminescent properties, became regular events. Each day, Rover would visit the entrance to the underground structure, and Lumen would emerge to meet him. Through painstaking analysis of the neural data, scientists on Earth began to piece together a rudimentary understanding of the communication taking place. The creatures had been dormant for thousands of years, waiting in biological stasis for conditions that would allow them to emerge once more. "They're not native to Mars," Dr. Williams explained during a briefing with international space agencies. "Based on what we can interpret, they're refugees from another star system whose ship or arc malfunctioned, forcing them to enter hibernation until they could be rescued." "And now they think with a rescue party?" asked a NASA representative. Williams shook his head. "Not exactly. They recognize our arrival as evidence of intelligent life, but they understand we're not their people. What's remarkable is that they've chosen to communicate through Rover rather than the human crew." "Why?" demanded a representative from the European Space Agency. "We believe it's because his neural patterns are simpler, more direct. Human consciousness is too complex, too noisy for their methods of communication. Rover's mind is like a clear channel, emotionally rich but without the conceptual interference that humans generate." The implications were staggering. An alien species that could more easily communicate with Earth's animals than with humans themselves. The philosophical and religious debates began immediately and raged across Earth's media networks. Meanwhile, on Mars, a more immediate crisis was developing. The warning came through Rover first. During a routine communication session with Lumen, the dog suddenly became agitated, pacing and barking at the sky. "Something's wrong." Commander Bakshi reported to Mission Control. "Rover's trying to tell us something." Dr. Williams analyzed the neural data. "There's a pattern here, repeating danger signals. I think they're warning us about something." Within hours, Mars orbital satellites detected a massive dust storm forming, the largest recorded in decades, heading directly for the Odyssey landing site. Such storms could last for weeks or even months, cutting off solar power and potentially damaging exposed equipment. "We need to secure all exterior systems." Bakshi ordered her crew. This could get ugly. As they rushed to prepare, Rover disappeared. Security cameras showed him racing toward the alien structure, where Lumen awaited. The two disappeared into the underground entrance just as the storm's leading edge began to darken the Martian sky. "We've lost Rover," Bakshi reported grimly. "He's gone underground with the alien." Chen's voice came through the comm, tight with concern. "Can we retrieve him?" "Negative. The storm is already too intense for EVA. We're battening down for duration." For 3 Earth days, the storm raged with unprecedented fury. The habitat system strained under the onslaught as visibility dropped to zero, and fine dust penetrated every seal and gasket. Solar power failed completely, forcing the crew to rely on emergency reserves. And still, there was no sign of Rover. Dr. Williams monitored the weakening neural signal, which indicated Rover was alive but in an altered state. "It's similar to the hibernation pattern we saw during the journey," he reported. "But there's something else, a secondary signal overlapping his. I think Lumen is connected to him somehow." On the 3rd night, as the storm reached its peak intensity, Commander Bakshi was awakened by an alert. Something was moving outside the habitat. Security cameras, barely functional through the dust, showed a glowing blue light approaching. As it came closer, she could make out Rover's form, but he wasn't alone. Dozens of Lumens kind surrounded him, their combined bioluminescence cutting through the storm. They're protecting him, she realized. More than that, they were guiding him. Through the maelstrom, Rover led the alien procession directly to the habitat's main power coupling, which had been damaged by the storm. The camera showed the luminous creatures surrounding the equipment, their light intensifying until it was almost blinding. When the light faded, the power systems came back online. They fixed it. Back, she whispered in disbelief. They understood what we needed, and they fixed it. Throughout the night, Rover and his alien companions moved methodically around the habitat, reinforcing structures, repairing damaged components, and creating what appeared to be a protective field that diverted the worst of the storm. By morning, the storm had begun to abate, and when it finally cleared completely, the crew emerged to find their landing site transformed. The alien structure was now partially exposed, its glowing patterns forming a complex network that extended toward the habitat, a permanent connection between the two worlds. Rover stood at the midpoint between them, no longer just an explorer or a scientific instrument, but an ambassador between species. 6 months later, Eliza Chin stood before the United Nations General Assembly, her expression solemn but her eyes alight with the fire of discovery. What began as a mission to test survival systems for future human colonization has become something far greater, she told the assembled representatives of humanity. Through Rover, we have established ongoing communication with an intelligent species that predates our civilization by millennia. The Lumens, as we now call them, have shared knowledge that has already revolutionized our understanding of energy generation, material science, and biological systems. On screens around the chamber, images showed the expanded Martian base, now a thriving research station where humans and Lumens work together, with Rover and a growing contingent of specially trained dogs facilitating communication between the species. But perhaps the most profound gift they have given us is perspective, Chin continued. The Lumens are themselves refugees, the last survivors of civilization that destroyed its home planet through conflict and environmental degradation. They came to Mars as a temporary haven, intending to rebuild and continue their journey. Instead, they encountered catastrophe and were forced into hibernation. She paused, letting the parallel sink in. They see in us both great promise and familiar warning signs. Through Rover's simple, honest consciousness, they have come to understand our capacity for both creation and destruction, and they have chosen to help us avoid their fate. In the chambers of power across Earth, debates raged about the implications of the alien presence. Some feared hidden agendas or biological contamination. Others saw opportunity for technological leaps or military advantage. But on Mars, where Rover bounded across red sand under the watchful eyes of both human and Lumen observers, such concerns seemed distant and small. There, in the meeting of three vastly different forms of consciousness, something new was emerging, a shared understanding that transcended biology and origin. Commander Bakshi found Rover at his favorite spot, a ridge overlooking the expanding colony. In the valley below, habitat modules and alien structures formed a harmonious blend of human and Lumen architecture. Teams of scientists worked alongside glowing alien counterparts, their efforts coordinated by canine intermediaries trained back on Earth and shuttled to Mars on an accelerated schedule. "Quite a view, isn't it?" she said, sitting beside the German shepherd who had changed human history forever. Rover leaned against her, his warm presence a comfort in the alien landscape. Through his neural implant, she caught glimpses of how he perceived the scene, not with human analytical detachment or alien mathematical precision, but with simple joy at beings working together. Her calm unit crackled. "Commander, we're ready for the test if you and Rover want to observe," came Dr. Williams's voice. He had relocated to Mars permanently after the first contact, becoming the leading expert in cross-species communication. "We're on our way," she replied, rising and gesturing for Rover to follow. They made their way down to the main research facility, where humans and Lumens have been collaborating on a project that could transform both their futures, a propulsion system that utilized principles never before imagined by human science. The calculations check out, Williams explained as they entered the testing chamber. If this works, the journey time to the nearest star systems drops from centuries to decades. Bakshi nodded, her mind racing with the implications. And the Lumens believe this will help them complete their original journey? Eventually, but they're in no hurry to leave, apparently. They find us interesting. A group of Lumens undulated into the chamber, their blue glow rippling with patterns that Bakshi had learned to recognize as excitement. Rover trotted over to them, engaging in a mysterious form of communication that scientists still couldn't fully decode despite years of study. "What are they saying?" she asked. Williams smiled. "According to what we can interpret, they're thanking Rover. Again, they believe that without him, they would have remained dormant until their systems failed completely. His discovery saved their entire species. And changed ours forever," Bakshi added softly. As the test began, human, dog, and alien stood together watching the impossible become reality, a microcosm of the new relationship that had formed between three species from two worlds. On Earth, in the StarCanine headquarters that had now become the center for interspecies diplomatic relations, Eliza Chun reviewed the latest reports from Mars with a mixture of pride and awe.